Good morning, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of the Frazzled Executive Syndrome series, Take Back Your Day. This morning we'd like to talk a little bit about work. Every organization depends on the success of every employee and all those other business partners that are doing work for them to make things happen. And so we want to really take a moment to dissect that and see what we can do to help improve the whole working environment inside an organization. Now, if you were with us in our last session, you know that we showed this same timeline, and what it really is here to illustrate is that top executives and leaders in an organization have long days and they spend most of their time talking to people, either meeting with them, sending emails, phone calls, chatting. However they do it, they're talking a lot. And in the last session we talked about knowledge management and how a lot of time gets spent transferring knowledge, much of which could be easily transmitted through a knowledge management system. But today we want to focus on work, and so when we look at a lot of the other types of things that come out of these encounters, it's often delegation of work. So in order to really understand what that means, we need to be careful about what delegation is. Delegation isn't simply asking somebody to do something. There has to be more to it than that. And that starts by asking the right questions. Who is doing the work, whether it's the right person, and what exactly are you asking them to do? Sometimes we ask people to do things in the broadest terms when we actually mean something very specific. And do they know how to do it? And of course, you're giving them a deadline. So it's really important that you ask the proper questions when you delegate work to make sure that the person you're delegating to fully understands what you're asking them to do. So that's fine, especially for simple tasks. But very often when we do assign a task, we find that it's more than just a simple task, because the person that we often ask to do it either A, isn't doing the whole task themselves, or B, they're not doing any of the task. They're going to turn around and delegate it to somebody else. And so what you end up with is not just a simple delegation, but an actual process. And tracking work through a process can be a whole different animal than just tracking the work through a single delegation of a simple task. So we need to be aware of what we're asking for when we ask somebody to do something for us. So the next element of assigning work is setting expectations. And of course, like any good athlete, when we ask somebody to do something, we expect them to perform. And the difference between work and an athletic competition is that when an athlete doesn't perform, the consequences are obvious. But that's not always the case in the work environment. Sometimes the consequences are at best inconsistent. If people don't do things correctly, or they don't do things at all, and there are no consequences at all, or the consequences are haphazard or sporadic, then they may be less inclined to be consistent about doing things. And this does not create a culture of accountability. So it's very important that you set consistent expectations about the performance of work, and that when people do not perform, that you have consistent consequences that make it clear to people that non-performance is not an acceptable outcome. So when we look at assigning work, one of the challenges is making sure that you have a closed loop system so that when you assign work, the people you assign it to know that it will not go unnoticed if they don't do the work. And of course, to do that, you need to have mechanisms in place to manage your work. And a good corporate intranet portal is a great tool for doing that. There are all kinds of business process management solutions. We like to think that our Unipage system is one that is particularly useful because it encompasses both knowledge management, which we talked about last time, and task management, which is essentially what we're talking about today. So let's go ahead and take a look. So at this point, what I'd like to do is walk you through looking at Unipage as a way of managing the delegation cycle. Now, as I mentioned, Unipage provides a lot of functionality in other areas of the business, but we're particularly fond of the technology that we've developed for work delegation. And the challenge with any work delegation task is that it comes in many forms. So, for example, if I click over here on our operations tab, this takes us to an area of the site that deals with daily operations of the business. And so, for example, in this case, we have some different things here, one of which is maintenance requests. And I can quickly add a new maintenance request just so we have something to kind of follow through the system here. Now, this is a workflow enabled item. We can just say paint the fence, reference to the Karate Kid there, and we'll make that requested. And now it asks us who to assign it to. This could be predefined in our system, or you can just type it on demand. This helps me with demos, so I can put my own name here, and that way it'll show up in my list. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put a group here, and this isn't gonna make any sense, but it will later. So I'm putting a group called Finance, which I happen to be a member of. Routine. Requested completion date, we'll give them more than a day to do that. We'll give them 2 days. And these other fields are actually for the folks doing the work to fill in later. So that's all I need to do for now, is to submit a request. And you see that this request goes here. So anytime if I'm dealing with maintenance, I can come in here and look at all the maintenance requests that are going on and what their status is from here. But at the same time, I've also assigned work. And just to show you that, you know, there's a lot of variety in the tasks. So I may want to make a vacation request, and I could come over here to vacation requests, and I could enter a vacation request here, and you see that there's a number of them in the system. But the key to this is that ultimately work is tracked in all different areas of the system, and so it may be complicated to have to go to the source of each request, whether it be in HR or operations or any other area of the system, to find out what work I have. And so what we've done is we've created something we call My Workbox. And the idea is quite simple. You have an inbox for your emails. An email is a communication tool. This is a workbox. It is like an inbox, only it's for work, not just communications, not just transfer of knowledge. And so from here, I have a dashboard, if you will, for tracking all of my requests. And you can see that under operations here, I have this one that I just did, paint the fence, and I assigned it to finance. And the reason I did that is I wanted to show you that oftentimes requests get assigned to a group of people where only one of the members of the group really needs to handle it, but you don't know which person has the capacity to handle it the soonest, and so you assign it to a group. And the way we manage that is from here, you'll notice I can come up here and I can click Claim Task. And so whereas right now all the members of the group see this task, by clicking on this, you'll notice that now this is assigned just to me. So now the other folks in the group aren't going to see it. I've said I'm going to do this. I haven't actually done it yet, but I've taken ownership of it. And anybody coming into the system now will be able to see that this is assigned to me and not the group. So it's a way of taking accountability and managing things. And of course, this also allows me to go in and further the status. I can come in here and edit the request. So in this case, I may need to put some materials in here, so I can click over to the actual item. And you see it spawns a new window for me, and I can put in 5 gallons of flat white latex paint. Let's see, I'm making stuff up here as we go. 50 yards of fencing. Save that. And I'm back at the list here, but still over here I can go ahead and move the process forward. Say I'm done with it now. I assign it back to myself or someone else to let them know that it's completed. And now I've moved that process forward, that workflow. So some things may be really simple like this, where I assign something to somebody, they do it, and they tell me it's done, and I have a closed loop system. Other things may go through multiple steps and be handed off to different people, and of course we handle that, and we handle the ability to do looping and things if we have to circle back into the process for some reason. So this is my list of things that I have to do. But here's what's great about the system is that that's not all I care about. I also care about all the assignments that I made that other people are responsible for, and I want to be able to see what's going on with those. And so up here I have active tasks that I originated, and from here I can see how they're going and what their status is in the process. And then once they're completed, I also have a history down here where I can see things that have been closed out. So this allows me to track the things I have to do, and also to keep tabs on the things that I've assigned to others, so that I have a full accounting of what's going on. And this creates the closed loop system that you really need to have full accountability in your organization, but also to provide people with the tools so that they don't really have a good excuse for why they didn't get things done. So this brings us to the conclusion of today's episode of the Frazzled Executive Syndrome. And I think it's important to note here that regardless of what tool you choose to use, it's very critical that you have a systematic approach to delegating work and to managing that work across the entire enterprise. Because without effective delegation, you have too many things falling into black holes, and this causes a tremendous amount of backtracking and wasting of time. And this whole series is about stamping out time killers, and this one right here is a real big one. Look forward to talking to you in our next episode. Thank you very much for your participation.